What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, what a slate, a Sunday slate of NBA games. We have three really good ones to talk about. How you doing today?
I'm great. I was thinking about this. When you looked at the totality of the games and like the finishes of the games, this might have been the best night you've had in the league to this point. I mean, this might be the top of the list in terms of just dramatic basketball. We saw a lot of it last night. A lot of very strange, bizarre things went on at the end of some of these games. And we had so many games, and there were some really, really interesting ones for sure last night.
So we're going to be breaking down the Nuggets and the Mavericks game in segment one. Came down to the wire. We're later going to move on to the Rockets and the Pistons, and then the Timberwolves and the Miami Heat. All of those games had fantastic finishes, so a lot to break down, but we got to start with our top story. Last night, the Mavericks Nuggets was back and forth, really the entire game, but especially down the stretch. And it was a back and forth battle between Kyrie Irving and Nikola Jokic, making big time play after big time play. But in the end, Jokic's 37 points, 18 rebounds, 15 assists, 3 of 3 from shooting from the 3-point line was enough to get it done. Legs, a lot of stuff happened in this one, but what stood out to you the most about that matchup?
Well, first of all, I guess you're just being humble about your guy, but if I'm not mistaken, what I saw last night circulating around and even some of the post-game coverage that I was watching on different networks, nobody's ever recorded a stat line like that?
Never. Yeah. Well, that exact number. That's
what I mean. That many points, rebounds, and assists in the same game, right?
37, 18, 15.
I mean, think about what I'm saying here. Like all of the games that have been played in the history of the league, you know, if you were watching that game last night, you saw somebody, and you would think by now there really aren't any more statistical barriers for Jokic to break through that you could say the first to do this, first to do that. You kind of feel like it can't get better than it's already been. And I texted you a few nights ago, or maybe it was this game. I don't remember. Maybe in their last game. I don't know. I texted you and said, is it possible this guy's better?
Yeah.
After all these MVPs, and yet he's still continuing to evolve as a player. Their team is playing a lot better. He's obviously been sensational, but there's some other things going on with the team right now. So you asked me my first thought. My first thought is this guy's actually surpassing some of the things he's done in the past, and I didn't think that was possible. I really didn't. I know he's young, and he's still in his prime for a while, Adam, but still, it's like at some point you go, well, you can't be better than he's been. And I actually think he's been playing that way and sort of carried this team from where they were, which was like a lot of doubt and uncertainty. I think he put them on his back completely. And now other guys are joining the party. But it was him that kickstarted this and continues to do it. So his greatness, I think, is the first thing that jumps out from last night.
You never know when a guy's peak is, right? Until it's over. And then you're kind of like, okay, well, I think he was a little bit better years past. But with Jokic, 3 MVPs, a championship in between that, he's been phenomenal and at this crazy level for so long. But I think it's unquestionable that he's playing the best basketball of his career. Regular season-wise, you got to separate playoffs and regular season. But regular season-wise, what he's doing right now is absolutely insane. And first of all, 56% from the 3-point line. That was the one thing that was missing from his arsenal. Is he is an inconsistent 3-point shooter, and it's only been 10 games. So let's wait and see how long this hot streak lasts. But to me, this part of it, the Nuggets lack 3-point shooting. They've really made up for some cutting. We'll get into that in a second. But his personal willingness and ability to knock down the 3-point shot at a high rate now makes him unguardable. And there's now nowhere on the court for you to hide defensively. If you have to run out on him, he's going to bully you inside or play the 2-man game. If you sag off of him, he's going to hit the 3. And that's, to me, it's that and a couple other things we'll talk about, but that's what's leveled him up and is different from previous years.
He last night, he had a number of plays in the game, and he does this every night, but I thought more of them stood out to me last night because it was a cast of characters for Dallas that were just so overwhelmed by him physically with his strength, his weight, his ability to just kind of pin you and keep you there. It was literally, these guys looked futile and helpless. And I'm talking about all of them, whether it was Gafford or Powell. Luka a couple times got switched on to him. Luka's a big, strong guy. Luka, in a lot of ways, that's his best asset, is his strength. He's not lightning quick. It's his strength is really what enables him to do a lot of things he does on the court. So I know Jokic is a lot bigger, heavier, but Luka is one of the stronger guys in this league that play on the wing. And he got switched onto him a couple times in the basket and like just got mauled trying to guard him. And Jokic is so unaware of like who's around, and he still is able to maintain his touch and his multiple taps and all the things that he does in traffic while these guys are hanging on him, because they just don't affect him at all. And you saw it last night, really, like the entire game. And he's that rare guy that every single thing has to go through him on that end of the floor. It's really amazing because even a team like Dallas with Luka, last night it didn't. Like a lot went through Kyrie, and we'll get more to that in a second because not enough went through Kyrie. Not enough went through Kyrie last night. And I think what's the point of having him when he has a night like that when you're still possessions, he's standing and watching? It makes no sense to me. But with Jokic, it's got to be him, because he is going to command that kind of attention, and he's got the ability to control the game and control the narrative down there because there's no matchup. And I thought last night, more than a lot of nights, the guys trying to guard him looked just completely physically overmatched.
Yeah. And Gafford is. I mean, that's one guy that is just a little bit smaller than Yoke. You see him side by side. Yoke's way wider, way stronger. And so that was tough. There was no Lively or Washington in this game, which obviously would have made a difference for Dallas. But, so there's the part about you just mentioned guys are playing through him more. I think it's actually one of the benefits of playing with so many young players this year for Denver. You've got Christian Braun out there, Peyton Watson and Julian Strother are all sharing minutes. And Russell Westbrook, who's not a young guy, but we'll talk about him in a second. Those three guys, the young players, they are just getting their feet wet in the NBA. Christian Braun has a little bit more experience, but the other guys are out there. And you know what you do when you're a young player just trying to fit in and stay on the court? Give the ball to your best player over and over again and play off of him. So you don't have guys going rogue. You don't have guys saying, well, maybe I'll go over here and do this thing. When they're on the court, they're just looking at him. And I actually think Russell Westbrook had a shaky start to the year. He didn't even have a great game last night, but he had a shaky start to the year. Over the last 5 or 6 games, he has looked unbelievable playing with Jokic for the same reason. When he's on the court, the game's easy. Just look for Jokic, cut off of him, but always look for Jokic. He does it over and over again, and I think it's actually part of why Jokic's having a great season. He has all these guys looking for him every time down the court.
So I want to start there because I was going to ask you that. I wrote that down as one of the questions I had for you, who's somebody who's watching every one of these games, every play of every one of the Denver Nuggets games. When Westbrook joined the team, I mean, there was a lot of skepticism. I was one of those people just kind of figuring like, okay, that's interesting. They need spacers and guys that can shoot the basketball around the way that they run their offense. How exactly is Westbrook going to fit in? He's less efficient than he's ever been coming into this situation. So here we are. How many games have they played? 10? 10 games. So what give me now, after 10 games, right, an eighth of a season, basically, give me your returns on Russell Westbrook and how you view him, how the fan base is viewing him, how Jokic views him, how his impact has benefited the Nuggets. Because I agree with you, he's starting to stand out every night that I watch them as a guy that seems to be in the middle of good things happening on the court, runs. His energy is always going to be off the charts. I mean, he'll probably play till he's 40 and still have best energy on the court. But it doesn't always translate into efficient, smart basketball, shot selection, making shots when you're open. Like, I don't know why anybody guards him at this point for the three-point line. And you would think that'd be a detriment to the Nuggets, and Jokic have another guy in his lap when he's on the court and all of that. So give me your assessment of Westbrook, because I do think you're right. I think he has absolutely been a great pickup for them, and he's helping them on a nightly basis. So I want to get your thoughts.
When he's playing with Jokic, I have unbelievable confidence. And like you say, well, everybody's good with Jokic. I think he's especially good. And if you look at the numbers right now, Legs, he leads the Nuggets in assists to Jokic. He has more assists to Jokic than Jamal Murray, who's played more minutes and obviously has that great chemistry. He's a really good passer. He gets the ball on entry passes to him at an extremely high level. The transition game for Denver's never been a great transition team. They'll get you on quick little hitters, but they're not a all game long. They're pushing the pace. Westbrook pushes the pace. Jokic is great in pace. So those two have the chemistry in transition. They great entry passing. And then Westbrook's just looking for him at all times has been incredible. He cuts really fast. And it actually brings me to my big point with this team. You worried about the shooting, but the shooting does not equal spacing. This team cuts with purpose and athleticism. Westbrook is great at it. Christian Brown's great at it. Peyton Watson's great at it. And right now, all three of them are finishing at the rim. We'll see if that continues. But they have cutting spacing, meaning that they force the defense to move around a lot just off of their cuts. And so far, I think it's why Yoke's averaging a career high in assists. It's actually easy for him hitting cutters than him hitting stagnant spot-up shooters.
I think that's a really good point about Westbrook. I also think there's just something that they needed. And it could have been a younger guy that they brought in that brought you those fresh, energetic legs.
Yep.
Right. But okay, it turns out it's Russell Westbrook because he's a one-off when it comes to that. And he still has a lot of juice in the tank, man. He does.
Yeah.
He still has a lot of that. And I think that energizes a team.
Yes.
It gives you something because the guy loves basketball. He just loves to play. And that's why I've always admired him, regardless of some of the nights when, he turns the ball over too much and his shooting has left him at times. Regardless of that, the guy loves to play. And that is something that's an important quality for a veteran to come into that locker room. And I think he wants to win desperately. I mean, that dude wants to win a ring so badly. And this represented his best opportunity. And I think he's making the most of it. So now let's move on to the next guy I want to talk about, because I think Christian Braun has really evolved offensively for this team. Last year, I loved him. He's a competitor defensively, bigger, strong kid, really athletic, a slasher, attacker, tough, doesn't back down from people. But shooting was streaky. And now KCP leaves and he moves into that spot. And so it's going to take that level defense and shooting at that level or better. And I didn't know if he was going to get there this quickly. I thought he could because his stroke is good enough mechanically. Yeah. Like it should be able to get there, right? And he's got confidence. So you think, okay, those two things add up. Eventually he'll get there with more playing time. I didn't think he'd be this fast. He is now in this winning streak. He's shooting like 60% from the 3-point line, and he's in this 5-game winning streak. And his numbers in the month of November, you just take a look at what the guy's doing. He's averaging 18 points a game. That's something that KCP could never, ever replicate. See, quite the level of KCP defensively. He's pretty close, man. I just think the guy battles and competes. KCP is an all-league caliber defensive player. I mean, he got votes for Defensive Player of the Year. That's hard to replace. But if you're going to replace it, Christian Braun's a pretty good substitute for that. And he's got a much higher upside offensively. So I just think he's been playing great. His confidence level is off the charts. Every read he is making is the right one. He's taking the shots that he's supposed to take. He's creating energy in the open floor. It seems like he's one of the crowd favorites with the way that he attacks. So I also wanted to give him his props and to get your thoughts on how you think Christian Braun is evolving here early in year 2.
He looks unbelievable. And I thought he was going to look good next to Jokic just because everybody looks good next to Jokic and he is a low mistake player. Low mistake players, that means Jokic's going to get opportunity to make plays. He's been that, but he is making all the shots. So offensively, he's averaging 8 points in the paint this year, personally. KCP last year averaged 2 points in the paint. So everybody talks about the 3-point shooting. Well, so far, Christian Braun is running a little hot. He's shooting 50%. I doubt he shoots that all season long. He's running a little hot. But you lose the points that KCP might give you on the spacing, but he makes up for them with these points on offensive rebounds and in particular cuts. And like I said, Denver they play the same style, but they're getting more cuts and fewer threes. And it's like, it comes out in the wash where it's really effective. But defensively, I'm glad you brought it up because I agree that he can be, him and KCP, they just are better at different types of defense. And last night, what was interesting, Christian Braun has been phenomenal for the Nuggets all year, but last night they needed someone to guard Kyrie Irving. Off of screens, off the dribble, pull-up shooting. That's where KCP was really good, navigating screens, recovering, just being really quick. And I thought last night, part of Kyrie going off was Christian's a bigger-bodied guy. Kyrie so quick. He just wasn't bothered by Christian Braun, and Christian kept getting hung up on screens in ways that KCP wouldn't. So I thought, take nothing away from Kyrie. He was unbelievable, but Denver didn't have an answer for him, and I thought that showed where Christian Braun's weak defensively.
I think that's a really good point, and I think you're right. And the difference between the two guys defensively on that type of player, KCP is incredible about doing his work early and getting his body positioning in a place where he can't get screened when he wants to chase off a baseline screen. If he wants to shoot the gap, he waits till the last second, and you don't see him, positioning himself to shoot the gaps. He's playing a little cat and mouse with you there. He's always mixing it up. His positioning is better. Christian Braun is a little bit bigger. He's also younger. And I said year 2, by the way. I know this is his 3rd year. He's a little bit bigger. And so as a result, he's not quite in position when that guy tries to now get separation and break away from you to come off a screen. And now it's like he gets pushed back on his heels, and now he's playing the chase game, and he gets there a little bit later. So you see some of that. Now, I think that he can improve in those areas as he gets a little bit more experience. I think the 1-2 is there. I think the size and the athleticism are there. And he locked horns last night with a guy that got it going. That's one of the great bucket getters of his generation. I mean, Kyrie could do that to much better defenders than even Christian Braun, and he has throughout his career. He got cooking last night, and there was not a lot you were going to do to slow him down. I thought Dallas, probably their own offense, did a better job of that than anything else. That's a night when Kyrie Irving should have had 50 points, 55 points. There should have not have been possessions really in the last 18 minutes of that game where you're kind of still standing and watching Luka play. And I thought that they did a little bit of that, and I thought it helped out Denver.
There's no question. So is this a criticism of Luka? Because the one shot that you really think of was that logo 3-pointer that he took. And again, I'm of two minds about this. Part of me goes, guys like Jokic, Luka, even Kyrie, to me, they could have a bad game. I still want the ball in their hands in the 4th quarter. But that being said, Kyrie did not feel like he was going to miss. Like, he missed the last shot. Peyton Watson got a finger on it and altered it. That's the only reason he missed. It felt like he would have made every shot he took. So is that a criticism of Luka that he didn't get the ball to Kyrie a little bit more?
That is absolutely a criticism of Luka. And I guess to a lesser extent, their head coach. But guys that have this kind of control in the court, this kind of cachet, they're running the show out there. And so you're counting on them to make great decisions. The one you're talking about, they're up 2 with a minute to go. And he shot it. He shot a 30-foot. Step back 30-footer, they're up 2. And he dribbled the ball, by the way, the entire clock. He got the ball into basically the scoring area with 15 seconds on the clock, and he dribbled the entire clock out. And then just shot it 1-on-1, pull up 3. And by the way, let's, okay, so it's Luka Doncic. I get it. I understand. Nobody has praised Luka more than I have. But the truth of the matter is, and I know that you say, hey, well, I still want my best players taking those shots. You're right. And I always reference a game Jason Tatum had against Philly a couple years ago where he was 1 for 14 in the game at Philly, a huge game, 6. And he bangs 3 threes to basically win the game. So yeah, you're right. Those guys can catch fire at any time. But the reality is Luka Doncic is shooting 33% for the year on threes. He's taking 10 a night. And I've been saying this repeatedly. His shooting is hurting their team. He's going to go on a heater. He's never going to shoot like 55%. He's not going to do like Shea and be that efficient. He's going to take more shots to do that. He takes more difficult shots than Shea. But he's going to have periods of time where he's really efficient for a 6, 8, 10 game stretch. He hasn't gotten there yet at all this season. Like every night, it seems like he's, in that 40% range, if that. And so on a night when Kyrie was going like that, that was the one you brought up. That was the culmination of what I'm talking about. But there were other possessions in the 4th quarter prior to that. And it is Luka's decision. And Luka has to do a better job of navigating that, man. And let Kyrie initiate. Or if you want to initiate, understand what you're looking for on the back end, which is going to be Kyrie. Because look at the guy's shot from the field. Look at the shots he was making.
17 of 22.
He was feeling it, man. That guy was in the zone. I don't think there was anything that was going to stop him. The only thing he'd like to have back maybe is that last one against Christian Braun. He had more time when he caught the ball than to end up with that lean back fadeaway 3 when he really didn't go anywhere with it, got pinned against the sideline. He had time to get something better for himself, caught it in a really bad place on the court. But it was his night. More than anybody else on the floor offensively, it was Kyrie's night. We all saw it the entire game. He had a different rhythm about him it's incumbent upon Luka to make sure that they ride that to every extent
Yeah.
that they can. And I thought Luka, again, his shooting has got to catch up. This team's going to keep losing games that they're in if Luka continues to have shooting nights like this right now.
Yeah. So are you worried about that? I mean, they do drop to 5-5, which, it's early. That's not a horrible record, but teams are. We talked last week, there wasn't separation in the West. A little separation starting to go on in the West, just a little bit. Are you worried at all about how he's performed through 10 games?
Yeah, I am. Now, am I worried from the standpoint, this is going to continue, along these lines? Luka, for the year, he's shooting 41%. And the lowest he's ever shot in a season is 42 his rookie year. After that, it's 45 something. This is an anomaly. He's not going to shoot 41% for the season. But what I am worried about, Adam, is I challenged him in some of the statements I made after the season. Like, you got to the finals. You came up short. You see what the barometer measuring stick in this league is, which is Boston. You would like to see Luka come in and, like, right from the beginning, best shape, best stamina, best wind, right? And like kind of just come out of the gates playing mid-season basketball, because you've seen guys in this league repeatedly that have come up short right early in their career. Those guys come back and they look hungrier than ever at the very start of the season. I don't think Luka has looked great to start the year, and now they're 5-5. And I was wondering if they were going to now like take that step forward. If he was going to take that step forward, you added Clay, perfect fit. So the front office did their job. Now it's, are you ready to elevate everything about you? Leadership, stamina, efficiency, everything, and be at the top of the West, like right out of the gate. Be one of those teams that came out 7-1. There was 3 of them. They weren't one of them. And now they're here sitting here at 500. So look, it's not going to continue. He's going to play better. He's going to shoot better. They're a really good team. They're a finals contending type team as far as winning the West. They're in the mix. But yeah, 10 games in, I think it's been a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, one of my other takes about the Mavericks from this one was I was surprised at how Spencer Dinwiddie, and Klay Thompson in particular, really just didn't stand out in any kind of positive way. And that was part of it as well. Is, early on, I think it was because Dallas was getting the pick and roll and getting the release to Gafford, who I thought did a great job on the short roll making plays. And they had, I think, 50 points in the paint at halftime. A lot of that was that pick and roll. Denver plays up top. They got it to him and it was easy. But as easy as that was, it was almost like it wasn't a rhythm, like a team rhythm. They just kept getting that. So in the second half, when things mixed up, I just felt like Klay Thompson had no stamp on this game at all. And even Spencer Dinwiddie, I thought maybe even a little bit of a negative stamp for most of the game. So that's part of this too, is the next guys up that you would expect to make plays. I wasn't impressed.
Well, I totally agree about Klay. And actually, when the game ended and then I went and looked at the box score, I was shocked that he took 13 shots because I just didn't notice him. I really didn't notice him. He only had a few clean ones. And so 13 is a pretty good number for him on an average night. That's what I was going to expect he would get coming to Dallas. But I didn't notice him. I didn't notice him in the game. And part of it's, look, Kyrie gets that hot, it skews your offense a little bit in that direction. There's probably going to be a little bit less ball movement where Klay could end up with some of those at the end. Because, Luka gets so much attention. And then Kyrie, when he gets some single coverage opportunities and he gets that hot, there's your offense, those 2 guys. Right. Everybody else sort of picking up the crumbs. But I agree with you. Klay didn't have a stamp on the game. I know how badly he probably wanted to. Looking at the magnitude of this game, these are 2 teams that are fighting to stake their claim in the West. And there are some other teams in that category as well. So I know how much this probably meant to Klay. And it was really spaced out, non-impactful. You didn't notice them at all in the fourth quarter. And I think if they really want to max out who they are as a team, there needs to be more moments in the last 6 minutes of the game where Klay Thompson is making shots, because it tells you that Dallas is probably playing the right way if he's getting shots because of the amount of attention Luka's going to get. And he's such a phenomenal finder. Those shots are there to be had. And I think Klay needs to have little bit more of an imprint on the last 6 minutes of games. And he didn't really do much in this one at all. And I'm not blaming him. I just think that's the way the offense sort of went on this night.
So the Nuggets have won 5 in a row. All of them at home. It was a 5-game homestand. They won every single game. Some good opponents in there as well. Are you buying them? They're 7-1 in their last 8 games after dropping the first 2 of the year. A lot of these games have been close, but they've been eking them out. So are you buying them right now that they're on the upswing and starting to figure out their new identity, or is this just a homestand? They did do what they were supposed to do.
I was skeptical at the start of the year. I said I don't know that they got better, but now I'm seeing some ways in which they have. I think Westbrook has added something to their team that I didn't really
Mm.
maybe attribute that he would. Christian Braun is better offensively than I thought he would be when I saw him early in the year. Jamal Murray didn't get out of the gate like gangbusters, so I didn't know what that was going to be. I thought Jokic looked a little bit frustrated at the start of the year, and I didn't know where that was headed. Well,
Right.
clearly they've erased a lot of those doubts, and yeah, they've absolutely changed my mind in terms of like what their upside is. I think they're going to work for it every night, though, Adam. Like they're going to work for these, man,
Yep.
and it's not
Yep.
going
I
to be
agree.
easy or as methodical as it was the year they won the championship when they just carved you up on that end and teams looked helpless trying to guard them. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. It's going to be a little bit harder. And at the end of the day, if they are in close games, they still have Jokic, and that's going to lead to a lot of wins. So yeah, to answer your question, they've erased some of the skepticism that I had at the start of the year, and I view them much more favorably than I did, 3-4 games in.
I think it all comes down to Jamal Murray. He's the last piece of this that hasn't looked great. And he was a plus 15 last night, 18.6 assists. He was good, not great. I thought he was rough in the first half. Fourth quarter, he made some really, really big plays. But I think it all comes down to him because I think Denver's other players, there's an identity. The ball pops. They had 35 assists last night, 37 the game before. So they're getting a lot of assists. They're cutting. But they need that two-man game to be at a higher level than it's been so far. And Murray, he got injured. He got a concussion. Missed some games. So I give him a little bit of a pass, but here over the next week, I think I want to see him start to go off a little bit. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, that was our first game, but we have 2 really good finishes that we watched both of the fourth quarters of we're going to get to. And that was, of course, Houston and Detroit and Miami and Minnesota. We'll get to that on the other side. First, let me tell you about Constant Contact. Let's talk about goals for a minute. How are you tracking with the ones you set for your business earlier this year? Are you close? And if not, do you know why you haven't hit them yet? It's also the time to start looking ahead and setting goals for the upcoming year. If you have year-end goals, Constant Contact has what it takes to help you meet them faster. No matter how experienced you are with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run smoother. Sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact's suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast-track your success. Tap email marketing that helps you create and send the perfect email to every customer. Own the smartphone by adding texting to your marketing strategy. Connect with over 2 billion people on social media with an all-in-one tool for posting and sharing, and sell more online in less time with Constant Contact's powerful e-commerce tool. It's time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to constantcontact.com/allcity and start your free trial today. That's constantcontact.com/allcity for your free trial. Also want to tell you about the Game Time app. Killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You guys know if you're looking for a game over the week to take the family to, maybe you're looking at Christmas gifts and want to buy something around the holidays for the family to go to, a Christmas Day game perhaps. Hop on the Game Time app and check out all of the different games they have listed there, going out and extending all the way through the season. Or you can get last minute ticket deals. They have those flash deals at the last minute, zone deals where you can set the parameters. Oh, keep an eye on this game and in this section, and it'll send you alerts if prices drop. They also have that all-in pricing feature on the first page, so you know you're not going to get surprised at checkout with hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLNBA for $20 off. It's the best way you can support this show. Use that code ALLNBA, ALLNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, back here with Tim Legler. Let's get into these other 2 games here, Legs. I loved this one. The Rockets beating the Pistons 101-99. The Rockets are one of my favorite teams to watch. And it really is a lot because of Tari, Eason, and Amen Thompson. Those 2 guys just disrupt everything. Tari Eason in particular had a phenomenal fourth quarter, just made every winning play and knocked down a couple of big-time shots. He's what stood out to me the most in the fourth quarter, but there was a lot of stuff. What stood out to you the most in the fourth quarter of this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tari Eason as well was so big in this game. And I know you love hyping your guys. He's one of your guys. We all know that, right? You might have a Tari Eason jersey on underneath that t-shirt. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You can't wear Hartenstein till he comes back.
I know.
So
I gotta
that's
wait,
one
man.
guy on the shelf. So this is one of your
Yeah,
guys. He's impressed me, man. I just think his upside offensively during here at the start of the year has been better than I thought. I liked how hard he played, and I liked his defensive capability more than anything. But he's
yeah,
offensively been really contributing in a big way in helping them. This was an interesting game. I tell you what, all the games I've watched this year, Adam, there aren't many I've seen where I felt both teams played that hard for 48 minutes, the way that these two teams competed in this game. And
you're
I'm on
right.
the record of saying I think Detroit is, one of certainly the top 2 or 3 most improved teams in the NBA. I don't know what their win
Yeah,
total is going to end up. They were
yeah,
borderline laughing stock a year ago. I mean, they went through an incredibly embarrassing situation with a record losing streak. And it just teams got to the point where teams, they gave them their best shot because they didn't want to be the one that they broke that streak against. And it was just something brutal that they had to live through. And some of this young talent is coming together. Cade Cunningham is a legitimate star player. JB Bickerstaff, I love. They play hard and they've got a lot of young talent, and it's starting to come to fruition. They win that one. That's their 5th win of the year already. So, I mean, Detroit battled Houston. They
yeah,
always bring it. I just thought, just start with that. This was a cage match.
yeah.
Very physical defensively. Haymakers thrown at each other in the fourth quarter. Super entertaining game. And you're right. Your guy, Tari Eason, and Sengun was great in this game, by the way, throughout as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. And Tari, here's what it is about Tari Eason, because you're right. This was a very competitive game where everybody was going hard. And yet I thought he even stood out winning those. Like when you're going at 50-50 balls, but you're going up against other guys who just go all out, it's going to be a battle. But he had offensive rebounds. He just, the phrase he has a nose for the ball, it's never been more applicable than to a guy like him. Loose balls, offensive rebounds, just anytime the ball is in the air, he has a sense of how to get to it and where it's at. And it just was so impressive. And then the 3-point shot. I want to go back to the play that opened the quarter, though. So you start the quarter, and Jalen Green gets a dunk on Cade Cunningham and flexes on him for a second and gets called for a towel, so or technical. I get it. But Legs, this is my least favorite rule. It was 1 second. He dunked an incredible dunk, highlight of the night, and for 1 second just flexes like that, and they called it tech. I have a rule. It's the 1 second rule. It's like hanging on the rim. You can hang on the rim for 1 second, then you got to let go. I think you should be able to flex on a guy for 1 second and not get a technical foul. I hated that tech in that moment.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I think it was nothing to me over the top at all. And it was, if you
What?
haven't seen it, please go check out this dunk. Cade Cunningham, first of all, he gets stripped at half court, gets his pocket picked.
First
Was
play.
that Thompson that
It
stripped
might,
him?
yeah, I think it
I
was.
think
You're
it
right.
was. I think it was. And so then you go 2-on-1 break, and Cade Cunningham, after getting his pocket picked, does his best to hustle back, and he's in the lane, and they drop this thing off to Jalen Green as the trailer coming down the middle, and he catches the ball, man, and he jumps and he brings that thing all the way outside. Yeah, exactly. It's basically his arm is parallel to the floor, all the way
Yeah,
out, hits him in his chest and thunders it down, lands and gave him a quick just a little flex, stared in his direction. It was nothing crazy. I agree with you, man. And I don't think Cade Cunningham would have cared. In fact, Cade
yeah.
Cunningham actually looked at him, sort of smiled and nodded his head like,
You
yeah,
got
you
me.
got
You
me.
got me.
Yeah, I got. It
Yeah,
happens, man. I say it all the time. You get there
yeah,
late in this league, you get your feelings hurt, man. And that's what happens. And it's happened to all of us. And Cade Cunningham just kind of nodded. Yep, you got me. Nothing I
yeah.
can do, man. I got to own that one. Uh, you're right. Let there be a little bit of
What a play.
emotion.
Yeah,
It's an emotional, joyous game. And
yeah,
I really, he didn't try to go up. He didn't chest bump him and put his head up under his chin and like muscle him out. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're challenging a guy's manhood, like he didn't do that. He just
yeah,
reacted real quick because he knew how awesome that dunk was going to look on a replay. And so
yeah,
I will concur. I think you let it go for a second. And if he turns it off right away, let it go. If he continues on for
yeah.
2, 3, yes, obviously you got to do
Then you
something
get
in
it.
that
Then you
game.
go. Yeah. But yeah, James,
Sure.
do you have the photo of Jamal I sent you? This is from last year, Legs. Jamal Murray and Dylan Brooks, who are both Canadian friends, going back and forth at each other. And Jamal hit a shot and he screams in his ear as they walk down. No technical foul. And this was an iconic moment, one of the best moments of the Nuggets season last year. And it's like, guys, these moments are called competition. It's great. Fans love it. Let them have their moment. Flex on a guy when you dunk on him. To go to the end of this one, though, one of the things I have about the Rockets, and we're really going to talk about this with the Timberwolves, and again, because I love Amin Thompson, Tari Eason so much, Jalen Green looks good when he's with those guys. I think because they make up for a lot of, it's just so it becomes a super athletic lineup, and defensively, those guys cover for some of his shortcomings. But I thought one of the weird things about this game was those guys were playing great, and then you subbed in Jabari for a little bit, Jabari Smith, who, by the way, is shooting 26% from three on the year. And they're a weird team in that I love their top 8 guys, but I think it's hard to find the right combo of those top 8 guys. And I almost wonder if, like last night, their closing lineup, I almost wanted to see more of the bench guys than I did the starters at a certain point. And I just wonder if that's going to be a storyline for the Rockets all year, that their top guy, their starter guys, maybe shouldn't be the closing guys.
I agree with that. And I also think Jabari Smith is a guy that's kind of the odd man out sometimes. He just doesn't look ever really that comfortable offensively. It's very much patchwork
Brilliant.
quilt with him, whatever he does on a given night. And you think about it, he's just his third year. He's averaging less points this year than he did as a rookie. His shot attempts are down, single digit shot attempts, 9 a game. And they have a bunch of guys that can score in similar fashion. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's his personality type. Sometimes it's that, man, where you just don't have enough of that alpha in you to take some of those shots maybe that came your way. He maybe a little bit more deferential, because I agree. But look, I think he's important. He's in their rotation. He's important that he is in their rotation. He just doesn't really factor into it much offensively. Jalen Green is spectacular, man. He didn't shoot well last night, and he has nights like that, but he is so entertaining and fun to watch, and so incredible athletically at that spot. And when he's on nights when he's making his three, in addition to how quick his burst is to the rim and his athletic finishing ability, he's going to put him a big number when he's hitting the outside shot early in the game, and he's sort of feeling it because he's got unlimited range. It's just streaky because they're not always the best decisions when to take them. And he just doesn't have the consistency with his shooting, but he's got the skill set to get those off. He's a spectacular player, man. I don't know that they have a defined leader. It's like it changes from night to night, and it's a cast of characters. I think Ime Udoka kind of likes it like that. I do. I think he just rolls in there. Hey, man, this is my guys. These are my 9 or 10. We're going to run a match all day long. We got athletes. We got length. We're going to battle defensively, a bunch of interchangeable parts, and then Sengun, who plays a very certain way offensively, and they run things through him quite a bit. The rest of those guys, Adam, I think they're interchangeable for the most part. And on a given night, some of those guys are going to have good games and some guys aren't, and they rotate who that's going to be.
You might be right about that. Sengun is the one guy who's his own player. There's the backup is not anything like him in Landale, but 27 points, 10 rebounds. And Legs, I know you didn't catch this, but he shot the first ever Sombor shuffle from someone other than Nikola Jokic last night. He took it. It was a right-handed, right-footed 15-footer right from the foul line, turnaround jumper. No one's ever taken that one before, and he took it last night and drained it. And somebody sent me a video clip of him on media day hinting that he had that shot, that he had added a Sombor shuffle over the summer. So I thought, I didn't know if anybody would ever try to copy Jokic's signature shot, but one guy at least has.
One thing he figured out, okay, because he's a little bit limited athletically, as is Jokic. I mean, you just talk about, speed and burst and explosiveness off the floor. That's really what I'm talking about. Because let me just riff on this for a second, because I actually want people to be clear on something. Like shooting touch, hand-eye coordination, right? All those things are also athletic ability. I just want to be clear on that, because I think sometimes guys don't get credit for that at all. And it's absurd to me. Like, those guys are good at everything that they ever pick up and try. But I'm talking about the raw athleticism. So as a result, Sengun and Jokic had to figure out how to play and be effective playing at a different speed. And it requires a little bit of an awkwardness to their game, right? That so that people are always kind of off balance against them. And that's what Sengun does as well as Jokic. He's the closest, closest thing in the league to him. Certainly not comparing him to him, but the way he goes about making up for not having a burst around you or going over you, I've got to figure out a way to be able to get shots off even when I'm about to, because I'm crafty and clever and my touch is insane and I shoot from different angles off opposite foot sometimes if that's what it takes, and I go up real slow sometimes if that's what it takes because you don't think I'm going to shoot it and I do. They got this whole bag of stuff that they've got to employ every night to be as effective as they are. Sengun is one of those guys that can blow you away when you watch him, but just every night, man, consistently effective and highly productive.
He's crazy, man. And I think this is the real interesting thing, the challenge that the Rockets have is I love a lot of their players. And I think that those two guys also, to me, seem almost better separate from each other than together. Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And then you add in how much I love Alman Thompson and Tari Eason, and just finding the right combo. Like at some point, this Rockets team is going to have to decide who their guys are. And I think of all the teams in the NBA, that is the hardest call for me personally, of like, who would you be willing to part with? Who would you say this is who we're building around? I don't know the answer to that. If we go to the Pistons side, just real quick, I thought Cade Cunningham was great. My other note for him here was they executed, I'm curious if you have thoughts on this. They executed the perfect, if there's like 3 seconds on the clock, you're down 2 and you only have 1 free throw left. You have to miss on purpose. Cade Cunningham did the chest pass one, which I love. Chest pass right off the front. Perfect. 80-mile-per-hour chest pass, hits the rim and bounces all the way to the three-point line. They got another shot on it. And then they had another one, regular, like hard brick, just a regular shot, and got the rebound on that one as well. So very rare. They perfectly executed 2 intentionally missed free throws.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that the second of those was Tobias Harris, who got fouled with 1 second left in the game and went to the line down 2 to tie it. And I'm sure there were a lot of Sixers fans watching that moment as Tobias Harris stepped up there. He misses the first free throw. And because, people have always questioned, his ability to come through in a clutch. He misses the first one. So now he's forced to miss, and they did it again. He shoots a line drive on purpose, miss, kicks off. Jaden Ivey actually got his hands on it, going full speed outside the lane. He was actually kind of frustrated himself. He thought he had a better chance to get a hold of that ball and just quickly, get a putback up there. But neither one of them get it done. Rockets win the game. It's a little bit of a disappointment for Detroit because, like I said, they win that game, Adam. They're 5-6, and it may not sound like a great big deal. When you had the year they had a year ago, you're 500, basically almost a month into the season. That would be a big deal for Detroit. So unfortunately, they've got some more learning to do and how to win those games because they're so young with their best players. They're good enough now to be in games. The next step for them is winning some of these close ones.
They do feel like a team that could turn a corner this year in a way that's really exciting. That's one of the best places to be at, is when a young team who's been a loser turns a corner. Even if they don't make the playoffs, it's just like they figured it out. They figured out who they are and how they have to win. Let's go to the last game we're going to talk about, fourth quarter of the Timberwolves and the Miami Heat. The Timberwolves had this one in the bag, up 8 points. How much time was left on the clock? 5 minutes to go. It was 88-80. And then we get to clutch time. And I thought the Timberwolves in clutch time were frightening. Frightening would be the word I would use, because they could not get good offensive possessions. Just, what would that be, 6 points in the final 5 minutes of the game? And every possession felt like they would dribble down, pass the ball like a hot potato around, and then have to force up something ugly. And it made me worry, Legs. My number one takeaway from that game was, I had to look up the numbers. Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert on the court together. That's a really tough lineup. It's their starting lineup, by the way, and their closing lineup. It's a tough lineup to generate good looks for, I think. And last night, they didn't get a single good look. They had two of their buckets, 2 of their 6 points were airball offensive rebound. And then Jaden McDaniels at the very end grabbed an offensive rebound and threw it back. Kind of not a lucky play, but a really impressive one, but not something you drew up. They did not get the offense that they drew up at any possession in the last 5 minutes.
Well, listen, I'm looking here, replaying it. Tie game, 30 seconds to go. They take the ball out. They go to Anthony Edwards, and Miami goes to a zone. And it looked like Minnesota was completely unprepared for that. Anthony Edwards sort of started to go toward the baseline, and the zone converged on him. So he quickly spun out of there, got it to the back to the top of the key. Mike Conley takes like a 31-footer, fairly open, but that's not his range, and he misses it.
Yeah.
You're talking about McDaniel gets the putback. The part that I want to try to understand, Adam, for the life of me, I can't. So McDaniels gets the putback, and now Miami's taking the ball out of bounds, side out, half court. Someone is going to have to explain to me, if you're Chris Finch or whoever, one of the guys on that team, why are you lined up the way that they were, where Miami basically is inbounding the ball at half court, or side out, as you typically do at the end of the game. So you're 26 feet off the sideline. Okay, I'm looking at to make sure I understood what's happening here. They're taking the ball out of bounds. Miami puts everybody basically either at half court or in the back court.
It was so bizarre. They've got
to go 50 feet at minimum. Some of these guys have to go 70 feet to get down to the basket they're trying to score at, down 2 with 9 seconds to go. Minnesota is chest to chest with these guys all the way into the backcourt. And they run this play where Rozier loops around, again, running away from the goal they're trying to score at. And yet some reason they're chasing all these guys into the backcourt. A screen is set for Jokic basically at half court, a back screen, and he just runs straight to the rim. And they throw the ball from out of bounds to him at the rim all by himself, and basically, an opportunity to win the game.
Fouled.
Yeah, 3-point play to win the game. For the life of me, do you know what I'm talking about?
Of course, it was insane.
Someone has to explain to me what Minnesota was doing. Why are you chest to chest with guys that are 60 feet away from the scoring area, up by 2 in that situation? There's no justification for it. They gave the game away, in my opinion.
Don't you think that was one of those ones?
You lose. You gave them an uncontested, a layup, basically where he was uncontested, got fouled from behind at the buzzer, basically to lose the game. What could you possibly tell me, Adam, that they were thinking in that moment? I've never seen a defense in my life employed like Minnesota did at the end of this game.
Well, don't you think it has a little bit to do with, it was such a bizarre formation, it almost caught him off guard? Because, again, the ball's right at the half court. The basket's on the right. They all line up on the left side. And I just feel like it confused Minnesota for a second. We're like, well, what are they doing? They're up to something. We got to get into them. And it was just, you're right. It doesn't make sense. I almost just feel like they got suckered into it because of this weird alignment. But the broader point to me was Minnesota, that mistake. McDaniels fouled Hero for a 3 in the corner late in the game. He does that. This is a problem with him over years. And to me, I worry, is he getting better? That's a key moment. You got to be locked in. He just walks right into the guy's 3-point landing zone and bumps him. And then you go to the offensive end. I think McDaniels is really at the center of this. I think Julius Randle is who he is. He holds the ball a lot. I didn't love his spacing at any of the last 5 minutes. I felt like he kept running to the ball in ways that were clogging the court. But McDaniels is the one that I look at and I go, is he happy just being a 3-point shoot or a 3-and-D player? Because that's what he is. He's really good at it. And he almost looks like a guy that wants to be more than that. And between Randall and him, I look at it and I go, it's not going to work like that. That lineup is not going to have great spacing. Everyone's going to have to agree and accept their roles. And I don't think they have yet.
I agree with your premise on, does he probably consider himself to have, other layers he can get to offensively? Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen here. Sometimes you need to embrace the role that they need you to play to really have the greatest impact. And if you fight that a little bit, you're not going to be as good at that as you need to be. I think he's probably a little bit better than just strictly a 3-and-D guy that where 75% of his shots are catch and shoot corner threes. I think he's better than that because he's long, he's athletic, he handles the ball a little bit, not good enough to get his own shot. But the bottom line is, on this team, you're just not going to get those opportunities. With Randall and Edwards, as much they dominate the ball, Conley's got the ball a lot at the point. And then everybody else has a role. Gobert's a pick and dive guy, then they've got shooters. And that's really their team. And if you're McDaniels, you're sort of in between that. You're in between these guys that are specifically going to be out there to kind of space the floor, catch and shoot threes, but you're certainly not Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. And he's living in that weird place offensively for a young guy that thinks he's more than that. It probably is a little bit frustrating for him at nights. This was a night, those two guys took 40 shots combined. Their next 3 or 4 best offensive players took 33 shots. And you know what? There's a lot of teams in the league, those box scores look like that. But
Right.
for Jaden Daniels, 0 for 3 from the 3 last night, like those are the ones that you've got to capitalize on, because ultimately that's what they need you to do, playing off of 2 guys that control the ball that much, and they're going to get multiple guys coming at them. You got to be willing to stand there, space out, and knock those down at a high rate.
I think that trio is going to be interesting to follow all year, especially how they close. McDaniels, Randall, and Gobert. And you were talking about he's more than just a 3-and-D guy, and I agree with you. But the spacing when you have Gobert and Randall on the court alongside you, that's a tougher spacing. Is he a good enough dribble drive guy to navigate that spacing? Probably not. I think he could in a better space lineup, and that's why I think he, as much as anyone, suffers in that lineup. They have played their starting lineup with Conley and Edwards added to that trio, have played 127 minutes. That's the 5th most of any 5-man combo in the NBA, and it's a minus 2.4. So you talk about this is a good team. They make a trade. They have this lineup now that's going to be their most common lineup, but it's actually a negative. They're positive in their other ones. Just something to kind of follow there. Any final thoughts on this one?
No, I listen. I think, Minnesota, for me, that you're right. They're a work in progress. I'm not sure about them yet. I'm just not. I'm not completely sold on who they are, what they are. I thought, just based on the first handful of games right to start the year, that first week and a half, I thought Oklahoma City and Dallas were clearly the top 2 teams in the West, and I think now that's a little bit more jumbled. A great week for Denver because they beat both of those teams, and you've got Golden State's been unbelievable. I mean, they beat Boston. They get, I don't even know if blown out is the right word when you're down 41 in the first half, like they were to Cleveland. I'm not even sure what the terminology is for that particular situation, but they come right back after that, beat OKC. So really impressive start to the year by Golden State. Phoenix has been so good to start, and Minnesota's that team. Look, they were in the conference finals a year ago, and they make this major move, and I think they've got some stuff to work out on what they are, who they are, and get everybody comfortable with their role in that team. So their best basketball certainly is going to come later.
Well, we got 7 super chats today. I think that's a record, Leg. 7 super chats.
Man,
James,
awesome.
Let's go to the people who are super chatting today. They were feeling it. Marco says, hey, talking from Brazil, just passing to send love and say that I'm a huge fan of the pod. Plans to 2025 to do a tour and film my lifelong dream and watch NBA there. Feeling that rookies are struggling for minutes lately. Yeah, man, from Brazil, listening to the show, Legs. International.
That's awesome, man. I'm really glad he reached out with that. We are international global superstars. I mean, don't people know that by now? If not, they do now.
They do now, man. International meta mystery. Psycho Blue says, B-Ball Cthulhu says that when the seal breaks and the new B-Ball era begins, centers will no longer be ashamed of being bigger than everyone else. Interesting comment. I think this came in our Wemby conversation from last week, where we were talking about Wemby 7'3", but he's playing like a guard out there. I think that's where that one comes from, Legs.
Every time, was it Basketball to Chulu? Every time he chimes in, I feel like I've got to go on a retreat and get in touch with my inner Zen to understand, because he goes really deep, man. Really deep, philosophical, thought-provoking stuff, man. I got to go. I got to get out of the country. I've got to get in a tent, and just spend a few days and just get
little
my
ayahuasca, baby. Who knows? Yeah. All right. What do we got? What do we got next, James? Frank says, Mavs slow start has been more on Kid than the players, in my opinion. Not excusing players as bad choices, i.e. Luka late 3, but it does not seem Kid is putting players in winning positions, and it's costing them games. What do you think about that, Legs?
I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I'm just telling you, it's a lot harder to coach a guy like Luka Doncic than you think. And when
so true.
When Luka Doncic, as great as he is, man, and look, sign me up. I'll watch him every night. I love Luka, but I'm also going to be fair, and he's got to be better. Most of the start that they've had, the slow start, Luka Doncic has to be better than he's been. He's got to be more efficient. And when it'll click in, and when it does, the Mavericks are a team that they're gonna at some point go on a pretty substantial winning streak, I think, or knock off some marquee teams in big spots because they're constantly getting national attention with big games. They'll remind you kind of who they are. He has had a bad start to the season, despite his numbers, and I put that more on him than Jason Kidd.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Carlos Hernandez says, I told y'all I was worried when the Mavs were 3-1. Should I be worried where this is heading, or is it going to click eventually? The only new piece that's standing out is Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall was good last night, by the way. I was very impressed with
What?
him. We didn't mention him.
Najee Marshall was good, and I said to you at the very beginning when going into the season, both of those guys had to be really good. The new acquisitions. It couldn't just be Clay, and then Najee Marshall is just another guy. No, I said they're both really important, and they've kind of each had their moments, but it hasn't really been that consistent. And I still don't think they understand fully how much they need to utilize Klay Thompson. I think Najee can make things happen for himself with his size and his athletic ability, and some of the stuff he can do defensively is going to contribute a lot of nights. For Klay, it's shot making, plain and simple. Take and make 3-point shots. That's what he's going to be judged by on this team. And I don't know that they've really fully incorporated him yet to get him into rhythm. And it's been very inconsistent. I think they need to do a better job making sure that guy gets touches early in the game.
What else we got? James Carlos Hernandez again says, I also thought Luka would come into the season with a different mindset, and he's just going along with the flow. Is he going to be one of the players that never learns?
It's fair.
No, I hate that last part.
It's fair, man. It's fair. No, it's fair. If you're a Mavs fan and you're watching this guy from the time he came into the league, it's fair. Did he push himself as hard as he could in the offseason? Is he constantly trying to grab more? And that's what we don't know yet about Luka. Remains to be too young to make a blanket statement to say it'll never happen. Yeah. But it's fair to wonder if it's going to happen to that extent. I agree. Does he push himself enough or just rely on his remarkable talent?
One thing about that's interesting here, and this is a Jokic thing. He went to the podium the other day after putting up the second 40-point game. The Nuggets are 2-2 or 2-3. And they asked him, are you patient with this team or what have you? And he goes, I am part of this team. I can't say they're letting me down. I'm part of them. Everything I'm doing, it's like we're connected, and I just get to be the centerpiece, so I'm going to have big numbers. And Yoke sounds corny sometimes when he says things like this, but I honestly think it's how he views basketball. I'm just the centerpiece, and so if it's not working, it's not because they suck. It's because I got to learn how to use them better. And I think Luka probably has to come to that recognition as well at some point of, hey, I'm real great, quick. But my job is also to fit.
And real quick to your point, I saw that, the game last night, Nuggets obviously win a really, tough game, have to get a stop on the last possession to win the game. And they interviewed Jokic courtside, local TV, and they ask him a question with this ridiculous stat line, and he doesn't even address it. He immediately goes into guys that played well for them and how they were really glad to get a win and what a tough game it was and how good the opponent was, and mentioned a couple of guys that stood out, and then just went on to the next question. He never said anything about the question that he was asked, which was probably fair. Like, hey man, the stat line we've never seen before. You just continue to do it. And he just moved right past that, because I think early in the year, I think even he was a little bit concerned. Like, where are we right now? And I'm in my prime. I'm winning MVPs, but I didn't think we were just going to win one ring. Like, and early in the year, you wondered, like, his body language a little bit. I thought he'd get a little frustrated during games. Not certainly as bad as some guys can get in this league, but some possessions where I would see stuff that I didn't see before. And he now this team is on track. It's looking like it's falling into place. Some of these pieces are playing really well that needed to, and I think that's reassured him. And as a result, you add that with his greatness, and now you got a 5-game winning streak, and they've beaten 2 of the top teams in the Western Conference.
Yep, there you go. All right, what else? We got 2 more. Frank says, it doesn't make sense to me why Kidd thinks playing a 4-guard lineup of Kyrie, Luka, Hardy, and Dinwiddie is good, and I don't understand why Grimes is in the doghouse. I think Kidd is over his head. I agree with the Grimes part, man. I think he's a good player, and I kind of hate Dinwiddie, so I'm on Frank's side on that one.
Grimes is, if you guys don't know, Grimes is another one of Adam's guys. So that's another guy.
He's pandering to me, man. Grimes. That's what he's doing.
We haven't talked much about Grimes this year, man.
Hey, I'm out of missed on that one. Yeah.
By the way, man, Wednesday night, I'm going to be sitting courtside for Memphis and the Lakers. And with Ja out, you know what that means? Scottie Pippen Jr.,
man.
Scottie Pippen Jr.
By the way, what a pull, man. What a pull. Triple-double. I even reached out to some of my Memphis people when you called that. I said, hey, man, Lakes is really high on Scottie Pippen. What can you tell me about him? They're like, I don't know. He's okay. He's okay. And then here he turns out he's awesome. You were right.
He's a good player, man. And now he's going to get extended run with Ja out for a while. And by the way, Chet,
Yeah.
we didn't mention Chet got hurt last night, which looked kind of scary
Yeah.
as well.
We're gonna have to talk about that on a future show because out for quite a while. And honestly, I mean, that injury, you get hurt in a hip or lower body like that, even when you come back, you're gonna walk a little different. You got to build those muscles up that diminish. So that's a big deal. But we're gonna have to dedicate more time to that one. All right, last one. We got one last one, James. Jay says the Nuggets are truly playing Jokic ball. I agree. And that's what's interesting about this. Murray is off to a slow start, but as a result, the ball is just popping more. You need Jamal Murray to be fully back to win the clutch minutes consistently and to separate yourself, at that level. But I think the Nuggets have played the Murray Jokic two-man game too much over the last season. That should be a thing that helps you win games. But it's like that's your fastball. You need a changeup. You need a couple other things. And I think Denver hasn't had that. This year so far, they don't have the Murray Jokic two-man game nearly as much, and that's where it needs to get better. Murray needs to get better. But they do have that ball as popping Jokic ball style in spades right now, and that's why they've been so fun to watch, in my opinion.
Well, the good news for me too, Adam, the next time, it was such a great game last night. I mean, what an entertaining game. The next time they pair up, I'll be there in Denver with you, man.
That.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
22nd November, I think, right? November 22nd, I believe.
It is. So it's not that far away, a week from Friday, which should be pretty amazing. All right, great show, man. 3 great games to talk about. It was really fascinating. A lot of good stuff. We are off tomorrow, but we are back Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, and some really good games to talk about in between then. Everybody, if you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe. We're doing this 4 times a week live, and we always enjoy talking hoops with you. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you Wednesday.
We all silly like the mayor.